Hey, mamas. Good morning, good morning. Um, okay, so I gotta talk about this because I've been getting a lot of comments on the bookkeeper training school page, um, saying, well, my kids don't nap. My kids don't, I can't work. I can't do the things. I can't do the stuff. I can't do it. We need to talk about this. Okay, we do. Um, I think that there is this misconception that we need to be helicoptering over our children all day long. Okay. And if we don't, we are somehow a bad parent. And I think the other misconception is that, well, my kid just won't X. Okay. And yes, that is the case, for some children. Okay. But it's not for all children, and it's not for most children. I really want you to think about how you can create an environment that helps your children be independent. Okay. That is the basis of you being able to get things done. Whether that's getting work done, getting housework done, having time to read a magazine or a book, you know, fostering independence in your children is critically important. Okay. And again, the reason I'm talking about this today is because I've been getting tons of comments on our ads for Bookkeeper Training School. My kids don't nap, my kids don't rest, my kids don't do this, my kids don't do that. Um, and I think it's like people think it's like a magical switch. Like, we're just going to tell our kids, go have quiet time or go read a book when we've hovered over them for the first 3 years of their lives and performed entertainment for every second that they're awake. And we just think that magically our kids are going to do this. That's not how it works. Okay. If you've got, if you've taught your kids anything, if you've taught them, how to ride a bike, if you've taught them how to go potty, if you've taught them ABCs, it's a process, right? It's not something that just happens. Even when we helped our kids learn to walk, they didn't just stand up and go, right? There was wobbling and there was, teetering, and it's not. I think people think that I just snap my fingers and Eric does stuff. That's not really how it works around here. And I don't expect that that's how it works anywhere. But I think that we can have expectations for our children and we can model behaviors for our children that we want them to have. Um, have Eric having quiet time was not like a magical thing. I know maybe sometimes I kind of make it sound that way, but we had to work with him, especially when he transitioned to his big kid bed, where we had to say, okay, listen, and it kind of sprung from you don't need to take a nap, but you need to have quiet time in your room. And so, what does that look like? That looks like having a couple puzzles. That looks like having some books and having some cars. And don't get me wrong, there are days where like he doesn't want any part of it. Um, and what that looks like though for us is we say, okay, listen, if you start tearing apart your room or if you don't treat your things with respect, we're going to remove those things from your room. Not is not so much as a punishment, but so that you don't hurt those things, right? So if you can't have your books in your room because you're not going to treat them well, we're going to remove your books from the room, okay? And again, this is not something that like, happened overnight and he went, "Oh, okay, mom." A lot of times he gets really angry with me. Um and we talk about that. It's okay to be angry, but we're still going to do this. And it's not always perfect, but I'll tell you that most days he'll actually have quiet time in his room from after lunch until about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Often, I think he gets so bored that he ends up taking a nap. But there are many times that he'll play with a couple cars on the floor in his room. He'll do some puzzles. He'll do lots of different things. Um, but we have to give him the space to do that. One of the things that I've been doing, and I was actually working on this a little bit this morning. So I got these from, um, let me check my email to make sure that I give credit to the right people here. Um, I think that this is one of the homeschooling sites that I love. Um, the Relaxed Homeschool. I love her stuff. She puts out these like preschool packets. So I was laminating these, and what they do, and I'll show you. There's different pieces, but it comes with this, right, and it comes with these, and then what Eric does is he'll count them and he'll match them up. These are great little quiet activities for him to do in his room. I also did a lacing thing for him today that he can lace with a shoelace. Um, but like little activities like that. He loves puzzles. He loves playing with his cars. And so, to have those activities that foster independence, right? You could do blocks, you could do Legos. What are some things that you can give to your child at different parts of the day, um, for your child to play with? Sometimes Eric, if I need to get something done, we'll get Eric coloring on the table and I'll be working, so we're both doing our work, right? Um, and that's a way to get things done. I think, I've been talking to a lot of moms that are homeschooling right now and are struggling, or they're remote schooling. Um, and their kids need support. So they think that they have to like sit there all day with their kids and just like watch the screen with their kids. And it's like, no, no, no. Find something that you can do so that you can be there when your child needs you, but also so that you can get some things done. And so, what does that look like in your home? I know that there's a lot of you are struggling with this right now. Um, do not think that you cannot do anything else while your kid is learning. Do not think that you can't do anything else while your kid is awake. Because that's why I think a lot of moms, they struggle, they're tired, they're burnt out. Um, and we need to change the narrative on this. I remember when I was a kid, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, like playing on the floor while our moms were doing other things, right? Somehow we lost that. Um, when we became parents, where we just kind of felt like, okay, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna watch him all day, and when he needs me, I'm gonna be here, right? Um, I think that's we need to like regain our independence, and we need to allow our children to regain theirs, right? So that we're not up at 9 o'clock at night, cleaning our house because we were so focused on our kids all day. Um, Independent play is so important for kids. Um, I love when I see that Eric will sit down and he'll sit down with his books and he'll just like flip through his books and he'll look at the pictures and he'll tell the story of what is going on in the book, um, just on his own. But it didn't happen overnight. It's something that, he would see us reading, he would see us doing our thing, and he would go do his thing. And trust me, like, it was funny. I just went downstairs to get something before this live, and Eric's like, Mama, will you play with me? Will you play with me? And, sometimes I have to say, well, honey, I have to get some work done. So here, you do your work, right? And I'm gonna do my work. And when you model that for them, right? I think that is just, it's a beautiful thing to be teaching your children. Okay. So I understand not all kids nap. I know it's kind of my thing, um, create a full-time income while your kids are napping. I know some of your kids aren't napping. Um, so what can we do to foster that independent play in our kids? And this is kids of all ages, right? I mean, this is your littles. I remember, and I don't know, maybe it's just because Eric was born right before tax season, right? So we had to be like, okay, so what are we gonna do? So, you know, Eric was in, Eric was in his playpen. I remember between Jeff and I, when our desks were downstairs, and we'd watch him and we'd interact with him and we'd do our work, right? And then when he got mobile, we kind of had to say, okay, so we're going to structure things a little bit differently so that we could switch off, but we still get things done while we're watching Eric. Yes, it's not perfect. Yes, it's certainly not as productive as when, one of us is up here, um, by ourselves, but I think we've done a really good job trying to foster independent play, creative play, um, in Eric, and I think that I think it's worked really well. I do. Again, it's not something that happens overnight. Think about all the things that you teach your children and what that process looks like. Um, I think fostering independent play is kind of most closely related to like teaching your kids how to feed themselves, right? So some days, they do a great job with that spoon, and other days are like, I don't think you've ever held a spoon before, even though I know you have. Um, it's two or three steps forward and one step back, right? You're going to have really, really good days where, your kid is going to play like really well on their own. And then there's going to be some days, and I find particularly for Eric, those days occur on the days where he has not gotten a lot of sleep. Okay. If he is sleep deprived, his ability to play on his own is really, really hampered. And so, one thing that I really be watching with your kids, and there are guidelines online for how much sleep your kids should be getting, but I would be looking at those guidelines and making sure that your kids are getting enough sleep, because that's one thing that really impacts their ability to focus, their ability to play independently and be creative. Because when kids are really tired, they um, they're rebelling against going to sleep a lot of the times, and so what you'll see, I know Eric does this when he's really tired. He's like, "No, I'm not tired. I'm not tired. Look, mommy, I'm not tired." Ah, and I'm sure your kids do that too, right? I'm not tired. I've seen Eric do that, and it's hilarious. And you're like, "No, honey, of course you're not tired, of course." But you don't tell him that because he's a toddler, and he'll get even more upset with you if you say that he's tired. So, I'd really like you to think this week, okay? Um, and even like this weekend is a really good time to do this. Look at the toys and the materials and the things that you have in your house and say, okay, what what can I use some of these for to help my child learn to play independently, so that I can have some time on my own. Okay. And like I said, I mean, like, Eric has really been digging, like he's coloring a lot. He loves to color. He likes these little things where he's, like I said, he's kind of counting things and then he's matching it up with the numbers. He's having a ton of fun with that. There's so much stuff like online if you Google, toddler independent play, preschool independent play, elementary independent play. Like really go through tons and tons and tons of stuff online. I'm mostly, right now I'm in the preschool phase. I know I keep calling him a toddler, but he's really a preschooler. And my sister-in-law keeps reminding me of that. No, no, no. He's really a preschooler at this point. Um, and so, that's kind of the world that I'm living in with all of those materials. But there's a lot of stuff that you can print out online. There's a lot you can do. We're having a lot of fun with like pom poms right now, and um, clothespins. Eric really likes clothespins. He loves Matchbox cars. Oh, good goodness, with the Matchbox cars. It doesn't have to be complicated. It really doesn't. Um, a toilet paper roll and a Matchbox car can be really entertaining. For an almost 3-year-old. And I would imagine that would probably go for a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old too. Um, but yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. But work to give your kids that space, okay, so that you can have the space that you need um, to do whatever it is you need to do, whether it's getting a little bit of work done, getting some stuff around the house. Just sometimes you just need time to like decompress, right? And so I want you to find that time during your day. And in order to do that, it's going to take a little bit of working with your kids to develop that space. It's not going to happen overnight, but it can happen. You just need to work at it a little bit, just like teaching your kids anything else, right? All right, so I hope that this was helpful for you. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to leave them in the chat. And mamas, you got to take care of yourselves so that you can take care of everyone else around you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I'll talk to you soon.